It is obvious that Matt Campbell and James Franklin have different priorities when it comes to recruiting.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Zach Sako, your host as always. Help me welcome back Pat Kerbler of Black Shoe Diaries. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode as we are talking Penn State football recruiting. Quarterback drama is over, but Pat, I think the big picture is we're going to get through the latest commitments in the class of 2027. Will Wood versus Peter Bourque. Tell us in the comments who you think Penn State should have ended up with. Is this a big deal for Virginia Tech? And I think that's kind of the comparison to this point, because we see a change, a drastic change in how Matt Campbell approaches things, being a lot more strategic with the recruiting class. And the recruiting class is good, right? This is a solid top 10 class right now in 24/7 here. The way that Matt Campbell is prioritizing and finding kind of player archetypes that fit what he wants to do with his football team.
Yeah, sure. I think that when you look at, this can be said for recruiting, this can be for the roster as a whole, because I know I've brought up in the past, and this is going back a couple weeks, even before kind of the beginning of where the Peter Bourque stuff got okay, he was kind of down to his final list, but then he was like, Ohio State, if you're interested, Auburn,
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame, I'll take a visit. So it's kind of around that point where I was like, this is trending in the wrong direction. I think if you're any of these schools,
yes,
it's okay, this is going to become an NIL battle. I think when you look at it from a roster recruiting perspective, it's where do you want to put your money within the roster, right? You look at the NFL and it's quarterback, it's defensive end, it's defensive tackle, it's offensive tackle, it's wide receiver, cornerback, right? You have these tiers, and we're certainly seeing that from Matt Campbell. And I want to be clear, quarterback needs to be probably the highest paid position on the roster. I don't know if it is necessarily smart to put all that money into high school recruiting quarterbacks, though, unless it's a bona fide 5-star, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Well, Mental maybe. I mean, I don't think he's I don't think that this quarterback class nationally is as good as some have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But my main point being if you are going to pay a quarterback, and the funny thing about all this is we have no idea what these guys are getting paid. We talk about that's
we can assume, the social media chatter.
Yeah, we don't know, right? But let's just say Peter Bourque is making $2 million a year or something like that. You better be sure that he is starting for you, because if he is not, especially at quarterback, it is a position where you see so much turnover constantly, right? If you pay a defensive end, a 5-star defensive end, Zach, Abraham Sesay or Sesay, I don't know how
Sesay, yep.
Sesay, right? If Penn State gives him $2 million, he's probably not going to start as a freshman, but you can at least get him some rotation snaps, and you can, work him along that way, and he can help the team. If you were paying a quarterback, whether he's a 5-star, whether he's a top 100 kid, whether he's a top 150 kid, whatever, and he is not starting, that means he likely is not playing. And if he is not playing, do you know what the next most likely step is for a quarterback like that, Zach?
Oh, let me guess. The portal.
The transfer portal. And I'm certainly not saying, congrats to Virginia Tech and congrats to James Franklin for getting Peter Bourque. NIL aside, he's a super, super talented prospect, 6'4", 120 pounds, big arm. Hokie fans are completely in the right to be excited about that. I just think from a Penn State perspective, and really just at any school, you better be sure of what you are paying all these recruits, but especially
what's his purpose? And that's the same thing at Penn State, because you have Alex Manske, right? This quarterback room, I think, is still a work in progress for Penn State. You have Alex Manske. I think Penn State should go and get a portal quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose a QB to the transfer portal. Not Alex Manske, right? But you have no more Rocco Becht, no more Connor Berry. Will Wood comes in to add depth and be potentially a high upside starter in the future. And that's the thing. Was Peter Bourque going to what was he going to do? And that's where it's so different in college football now, whereas you can't just take the splash commitment for the sake of taking a splash commitment. If you are Penn State, if we want Abraham Sesay, if we want to get a commitment again from Khalil Taylor, we got to create a budget and use our salary cap accordingly to try and make all of this work. And getting a quarterback prospect that's going to command a lot of NIL money is not in the cards if they're not going to be a starter sooner rather than later. Alex Manske is supposed to be a 2, potentially 3-year starter for Penn State. So what would that mean for Peter Bourque if he's commanding over potentially $1 million from the rumors that I've seen?
Yeah, you better be sure that quarterback that you're recruiting, right? I look at like Notre Dame, for example, with CJ Carr, highly touted kid. They get him to commit 1-year redshirt, and then he's starting. That kind of needs
precisely.
To be, it's either you start right away or you redshirt behind someone, you're a backup for 1 year, but then you're starting. This idea that these guys are going to stick around for 3 seasons, it's just not very likely.
No.
Once again, quarterback in an incredibly important position. I'm not saying to not recruit a high school quarterback, but I just think that Penn State needs to be smart about it. And Peter Bourque may be worth it. He may not. I think for right now, especially where Penn State is at and where Matt Campbell is in his first season, just probably not right timing with taking someone like that. And I just know, like, from my perspective, like, this kind of potentially, I mean, we'll see what happens with Alex Manske. I know he's been battling some sort of injury, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah. But this might push Penn State to recruit another transfer portal quarterback, which I know some fans might not think is ideal, and I completely understand that, right? It's even more expensive to get a good transfer portal quarterback than it is to get a high school quarterback. But at least you have an idea of what you're getting. I would rather pay, once again, we have no idea what these numbers are. I'd rather pay $6 million for Rocco Becht than $3 million for Peter Bourque. Now, granted, it's not my money. It's really easy for me to say that, but you at least have a better idea of what's going on in the transfer portal. And you look at all these teams. I mean, Indiana, Miami, national championship last year, both transfer portal quarterbacks. So it certainly is a way that you can do it in a way that you can still be successful in college football.
And then when you make the comparison between the two, so it's, you got to be strategic with NIL. Okay. But what about them as players, as prospects? Will Wood, if you look at the recruiting rankings, he's a 3-star. He's a 35th ranked quarterback. That's again, Penn State does its own scouting. I don't think this guy is by any means a 3-star. You actually put on the film, you put on the footage. Go figure. They're both from the state of Massachusetts and they're playing similar competition. So Peter Bourque is a top 10 QB because he's 6'4", I guess. Will Wood is 6'2", 220 as it is. So he has college ready size or close to it there, but he makes a lot of the similar throws, similar reads. Does maybe Peter Bourque have a better fastball than Will Wood, right? Is there a little more zip on a couple of passes? But the throws that I saw, okay, those are the same windows. That's the same air yardage. He's able to ad lib. He's able to move outside of the pocket. What are we judging here? Did Peter Bourque go to more summer camps, to skill showcases, as opposed to Will Wood? And then when you talk to, again, this is where we're going to debate this more in the upcoming segment, especially with guys that just committed, like the running back Odoh, who runs 10.86. But there's certainly a personality factor in here as well, that Matt Campbell is looking for guys that are no nonsense. And it's not to say, oh, that's Peter Bourque or that's not Peter Bourque. Maybe you can infer that based on what we talked about. Hey, Ohio State's giving me a phone call. Auburn's giving me a phone call, right? The point being that we know for a fact, not so much against Peter Bourque, but we know that Will Wood is mature, is no nonsense, has high IQ, has been described to me as a football savant. And that's what Matt Campbell's looking for, archetypes that players fit, as opposed to just, hey, this guy's the best athlete. Let's turn there. Matt, this is the big difference. Matt Campbell is looking for football players over athletes. And I think James Franklin always looked for athletes, and then we can turn them into football players.
I think on the Will Wood side of things, what's really interesting, because you do mention, like, the maturity and the leadership and all that stuff. And I think, as I've been following recruiting for well over, going on 15 years at this point. 2010 was like my first big recruiting class I remember following. And each year, like everyone else, you watch the film and you try to see what these guys are going to be and make your predictions. But it's like one of the things that I always find so difficult is, like, I don't know these people at all. Like, I don't know if they're
on a personal level.
Yeah, on a personal level, and the character, the character that they have, and the intangibles, right? That you can sometimes pick up when you know them personally. So I do think like on the Will Wood side of things, like for example, with Andrew Aiden, who works for 24/7 Sports and does their evaluations, very first thing he says in his evaluation, winning quarterback that tends to deliver in key moments. I can't recall a lot of recruiting profiles for quarterbacks that I've seen where the first thing that they say is like, this guy is a winner. Like that, to be that outwardly about it.
Factor.
Like, yeah, that it factor. So yeah, Will Wood is not the biggest guy in the world, 6'1.5", 220 pounds. It's funny. Ivan's actually compares him to a baseball catcher as far as his build goes, which is very funny. He obviously gets the Trace McSorley comps. I don't think he's quite that as an athlete, but yeah, like you said, as far as like being a football savant and really seeing the game and understanding the game, I think Penn State has a lot of reasons to be excited about Will Wood. And Zach, just quickly, I don't want to hog the mic here, but I don't want to be like the stars don't matter guy, because they certainly do across, positions on, for, defensive end, defensive tackle, and even quarterback. I will say that they still matter. But I do just want to read through the quarterbacks from the 2022 recruiting class, the Drew Aller class. Cade Klubnik, he was a fine quarterback, right? Ended up being like a 6th-round pick. Ty Simpson goes in the 1st round. That's a hit. Drew Aller was the 3rd quarterback there, right? Ends up being a 4th-round pick. I would say all in all, had a good Penn State career. Connor Wagman transfers from Texas A&M. Devin Brown transfers from Ohio State. Walker Howard transfers from LSU. Brady Allen went to Purdue. I've never even heard this guy before. Nick Evers goes to Oklahoma. He transfers. Gunnar Stockton still at Georgia. AJ Duffy, Florida State. He transfers. Taven Jackson, Tennessee. He transfers. Blake Murphy, Texas. He transfers, etc., etc., etc. Quarterback is the biggest. We have no idea. Like as good as the recruiting sites have gone, because if you go back 20 years, some of the recruiting sites, as far as like misses, they were big misses. Quarterback is still the one position that it's like, we have no idea. We have absolutely no idea. So I'm fascinated to see how the Bourque thing works out at Virginia Tech, as far as how long will he wait behind Grunk and potential. I mean, Bryce Baker was a highly touted kid that Penn State recruited, went to North Carolina, and now has gone to Virginia Tech. So I'm excited to see how that all works out for them. But I think if, knock on wood, Penn State does get Will Wood, that is a very good quarterback to be adding to their quarterback room.
Let's talk further about Will Wood, because I got it. You mentioned, hey, some people are saying Trace McSorley. I'll give you a more accurate comparison. Plus, Chukwuma Odoh commits, 2nd running back in this class. Penn State offensive side of the football is really coming together. The defensive side, still some key targets out there. What's Penn State's 2027 class looking like? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here and every possession matters. If you are looking to get even closer to the action, then FanDuel has a great offer for you to get started. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. FanDuel is great during the playoffs because everything you need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or you're just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. And if we look over at FanDuel, we can see the latest odds for who will take home the championship, who will win the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder are the favorite here still. The San Antonio Spurs are next, and then the New York Knicks after them. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. I see the comparisons with, and Pat, you pointed it out, Will Wood, Trace McSorley. I think that has to, right? They have similar traits, but I thought McSorley was more of a true dual threat, more of an athlete. It's not that Will Wood isn't athletic, but I think McSorley was faster. I think he was a little more agile. Will Wood, the fair comparison is Brock Purdy. I think Matt Campbell clearly has a type at quarterback, because I think Rocco Becht is similar to this as well. It's just, he's got an it factor, tough as nails, leadership mentality, no nonsense. I mean, he's fun to be around, but still, it's I'm going to show up to work, do my job, and the fun is for afterwards. And I already kind of just gathering information that I have about Will Wood kind of checks all of the similar boxes. Again, the thing that screams everything to me about this commitment is the football savant type of label for Will Wood, that he's able to read defenses. He's able to make checks at the line of scrimmage. And the comparison to Brock Purdy, I think, fits very well. Brock Purdy, when you give him the assets that he needs to work. I mean, again, if Purdy had taken 5 or 6 years to really settle into the NFL, kind of like a Sam Darnold, then I wouldn't be as, oh, Matt Campbell deserves a lot of credit there. No, Matt Campbell deserves a ton of credit because Brock Purdy's career took off immediately. Did Kyle Shanahan just magically unlock everything? No, he took a refined prospect and helped him continue that trajectory there. So, yeah, is he going to end up as Brock Purdy? Who knows at the end of the day, right? It's a lot of projection, but that's nice. Kind of, I think that's the fair comparison, is that he is a pocket passer who can move. His tendency is to throw the football. That's where I think Trace McSorley was more of a running first type of quarterback. He could throw, but he was a runner who could throw. I think Will Wood is a passer who can run.
Yeah. I mean, Trace was, even being looked at legitimately as like a safety. I don't think Will Wood is going to be, transitioning to safety.
Yeah, no double positions. No,
yeah. Maybe catcher for baseball, apparently, because he's built like that. But no, I just think, when you look at quarterback, like, I know once again, the Trace comparison is not like apples to apples, but like, it's just funny to think back, at the beginning of James Franklin's tenure, if you say, hey, but during that first kind of season, like Penn State's going to win a Big Ten championship, who do you think the starting quarterback is going to be? Everyone would have pointed to Brandon Wimbush, who was in that recruiting class for a period of time, who was a top 100 kid, ended up just outside of a 5-star range.
What a throwback. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just funny that it's like, no, it's actually the little white guy who was like last second, ad from Vanderbilt's class, despite the fact that Penn State already had Michael O'Connor. If you remember Michael O'Connor,
another throwback.
He was in that 2014
Penn State.
class,
that's a trivia. That is a Jeopardy trivia question. If I've ever seen one.
Canadian football legend Michael O'Connor. But no, there's just a ton to like about Will Wood. And once again, you take these swings at quarterback, and whether they're swings of the size of Peter Bourque, a 6'4", 220-pound kid who can, launch the ball 65 yards, or if they're a swing on, a kid who maybe is undersized and, maybe doesn't run a 4.5, but has all those other intangibles and seems to really, really understand the game and is productive. They're all worthy swings. So listen, I would have loved a top 100 kid in Penn State's class as far as quarterback goes. Make no mistake about that. But I think there's plenty of reasons to be excited about Will Wood and kind of where this quarterback room is going to go. Because like you said, Matt Campbell clearly has a type. These little guy quarterbacks, Rocco Becht.
Little guy, 6'2", 220, right?
Purdy. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't be calling him a little guy. I'm 5'10" and a half on a good day. But just that archetype of the guy with the intangibles, the guy that's going to be a captain right away. So plenty to be excited about on that front.
Let's talk about some of the other recent commits here. Back-to-back running backs in a span of 48 hours. So Aiden Gibson is that true. He is your clear RB1 in this class. But Chukwuma Odoh, does he have the higher ceiling? Let me say this. I don't know that he has the higher ceiling because Gibson does so many things well, and that's still a big if. But Penn State's taking a chance on the you can't teach speed factor. And it's not that you should never, because I know, in segment 1, you said that you don't recruit athletes and turn them into football players. No, you can, but that shouldn't be the basis of your recruiting. You need to start with Matt Campbell anyway, starts with the core of I'm going to get football guys first and foremost. And then let me see if I can take a chance on a few prospects that phenomenal athlete being overlooked. But the football aspect of it, let's see if we can bring that along over a few years. And I think that's the perfect comparison for Aiden Gibson and Chukwuma Odoh, because Odoh is the better athlete. I mean, at 220, he's running a 10.86 in the 100-meter yard dash. That is the equivalent of, give or take, you're close to a 4.4. It's closer to a 4.5. But in that, I think about that as he's faster than other wide receivers in this class. Like that's a wide receiver speed for someone that weighs 220 as a rising senior. He can cut down on that 40 time. He could add maybe 5 to 10 more pounds. We'll see if the weight helps him or if it hinders him. But I believe that, hey, you can teach this guy footwork. You can teach him how to run some better routes, maybe some different blocking technique and everything. But see, Gibson checks all those boxes where he understands ball carrier vision. He understands how to run downhill, see the lane, hit the gap, and then that route running ability, being able to be a 3-down type of running back. So compliments to Penn State. If you were going to get any players after you miss on Keemon Spell, which I still think is a big deal because Keemon Spell checks all of those boxes in one player. You don't need two prospects, but you get your next priority running backs there between Odoh and Gibson. I like those two.
I think they complement each other well as well. Like on the outside looking in, you would think like, okay, they're both the same size. They're both the same type of player. I wouldn't necessarily say that's true. Kind of like you pointed out. Like I think Gibson shows a little bit more as far as like vision and slipperiness and probably making plays.
Versatility.
Yeah, a little bit more versatile. But I really like Odoh. Like I don't think I can't think if it's 24/7 or Rivals because I get them mixed up at this point.
Yep.
I know Gibson is a 4-star. I know Odoh is a 3-star. I think 24/7 has Odoh as a 87, or maybe Rivals does. Anyway, main point that I'm trying to make is I don't think that there's a big gap between them. I was really impressed with Odoh's film. I mean, for a kid that's playing at Paramus Catholic, so playing really, really good, high quality
New Jersey
football. Like the talent that he's playing is like very legitimate. He's a guy that sticks out, like you said. Great size, great speed. I was really impressed with like his feet and his balance and coordination. I'm not comparing him to Katron Allen, but kind of those similar type of traits.
A faster Katron Allen?
I don't want to say faster Katron Allen because I don't know if he has like that power that Katron had and maybe quite the balance. Because I mean, Katron was elite with staying on his feet, but I think that's one of the things that when you watch, these running backs, like. There are a lot of running backs in the country that can run in the 4.4s. It's what do you do when you're trying to make someone not tackle you, and what are you doing when someone is trying to tackle you? And I think what sticks out about Odoh is just like he's able to keep his feet moving. He's able to stay on balance. Mm-hmm. So excited to see what he can do once he gets to Penn State. Like you said, as he adds weight. I actually don't think that he like pops as a burner, like in the same way like Nick Singleton did. Like Nick Singleton had to step on you. He was, 99% of the time he was gone, other than that.
And maybe they shouldn't have had him add weight. I never understood why Penn State tried to bulk him up to 225 because he ended up losing that extra step ironically enough, freshman year, sophomore year, Nick Singleton was better than junior, senior year, Nick Singleton.
This is a long-standing complaint of mine with the Franklin regime with running backs. I felt like they always added too much weight. Like Miles Sanders got way too big. Like if he was a shifty running back and they had Saquon and then it was like, oh, let's just get all these guys to 225, 230. It's like, well, not all of them can get to 225, 230, but
they could, but
you lose something with it.
Yes.
But to go back to Odoh, no, I think that he's a very good running back. I would be like, I know I kind of talked with you about like picking out like a 3-star kid in the class that we think ends up a 4-star. I think that there's a couple options. I do think Odoh is one of those guys where if he does the camps this summer, if he has the senior season that we all expect, like I don't watch his film and watch Gibson's film and think like, oh, these are two separate tier, running backs. I think that they're very similar. And I think I kind of like Odoh a little bit more. But either way, on both sides, they complement each other well. They're big kids. They're athletic. They're good running backs. Like it makes a lot of sense why they would take them. So yeah, now it's a nice bounce back off the the Keemon Spell mess because man, it'd be nice to have Keemon Spell. I'll be honest with you.
Can I give you a prospect that I don't know that he becomes a 5-star, but more than just your fringe 4-star where he crosses the line of a 90 overall? This is
sure.
I think this player takes a massive leap in the rankings. We'll get to him and some other priority targets that Penn State does need in this class if they really want to make this put a stamp on the first year of the Matt Campbell era. That is coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. The player that I'm talking about, and Penn State's got a few top 100 guys, Stanley Montgomery, Keyshawn Telfair, even talking to some scouts, Cooper Terwilliger is somebody that could actually still vault up. It's because that's the competition effect. Well, who's he playing in South Dakota, right? Is he playing anybody that's that elite? But Terwilliger actually is somebody that, hey, maybe goes to a couple more showcases. He ends up being in the top 100. I'll tell you somebody that, okay, he has 5-star traits. I'm not a recruiting rankings guy. I'm not scouting every single person. So I'm not going to go crazy and say this guy is a 5-star diamond in the rough. No, not quite. But Jamir Dean does have, he is a must keep in the class of 2027, because I was immediately concerned right out of the gate where 48 hours later, he does an interview saying, "Oh, I love Georgia. Georgia just offered Georgia this, Georgia that." I said, well, that was nice to get him in the class, but it seems like Dean, he's a vocal. He's vocal. He's a recruit. He's doing peer-to-peer recruiting type situation. At least he's active on social media. So take it for what it's worth here. But somebody that, he's teetering on flipping to Georgia. He's very active in who he's recruiting and trying to get to Penn State. Neither here nor there, but Penn State, Jamir Dean, if the recruiting industry gets this one right, another case of put on the film, watch the highlights, watch the huddle tape, and you will see Jamir Dean against the top players in Tennessee. Like, he's playing against the elite caliber in New Jersey. The same thing goes down in Tennessee.
The SEC.
He is just running by guys that are going to play in the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC. Dean is as legit of a prospect, and I would say the most underrated in Penn State's class currently.
Yeah, he was one of those, like, you turn on the film and it's 30 seconds in. It's like, oh yeah, like, just why is
3-star, just your everyday,
why
just your
3-star? Because yes, I mean he has good size, 6'1", 6'2" area, 200 pounds, very fast. Clearly, I mean the speed really sticks out, but the way that he makes plays on the ball down the field, like the over the shoulder catches, the readjusting his body, like tracking the ball, like all that stuff, like really, really matters, because
he's not just an athlete. He is a football player.
Yeah. Right. You can be, and I don't like to mention guys by name, but like you can be Malik Mega. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, run really, really fast, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't catch, if you can't track a ball, if you can't make a play on the ball, if you can't catch it without getting into your body, right? All
turning athletes into football players, right?
Yeah. So Jamir Dean is that was like the main thing that stuck out to me about him, was like, oh, these 40-yard bombs that he's catching, they're not just, him 20 yards with, or, having, nobody within 20 yards of him and him waiting to catch the ball and catching it like a punt. Yeah. Right. And then running after that. It's actually making a play on the ball, actually tracking the ball the way that's supposed to be tracked. So yeah, I was hoping, like, there was always this joke that Georgia would offer guys that Penn State offered like 24.
Seems to be the case.
Later,
you say it's a joke. I think it's legit.
Yeah, no. Now it's just very clear that they're just always going to do this, even with the new regime. Then, if I had to pick the one guy, I mean, Odoh would certainly be a guy that I would pick, and I want to pick someone that isn't a 4-star like on any of the sites. I love Carter Blattner. That's just like
another New Jersey guy.
The 6'4", 6'5", like 250 to 260 defensive end that, like, he could be a strong side defensive end, or maybe add some weight and he becomes a defensive tackle. Like that's my honey hole as a prospect. Like, I love those guys. Like, I always think back to like Ryan Buchholz, like just like my ideal football player. Like, I always want a Ryan Buchholz in the class, where it's like Carter Blattner might not be a guy who has, 8 sacks and 16 tackles for loss in the season, or becomes a second team All Big Ten or first team All Big Ten guy, but I will be absolutely stunned if he's not a productive player like either his freshman season or his redshirt freshman season. And if he doesn't end up being just like a very solid starter that all the fan base likes, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy was a good football player. So again, I'm not saying Carter Blattner is going to be like a top 100 prospect or anything, but I'm still surprised that even he's still, despite the fact that he, commit to Penn State, because this is what happens sometimes with these recruiting sites, is they'll have someone be a 3-star. If you commit to Ohio State or an Alabama or Michigan or whatever it might be,
you get a little bit of a raise.
Yeah, you get that little bit of a bump. So I'm just a little surprised that he's still stuck in that 3-star area. We'll see if he does the camps. We'll see how his senior season goes, but he's someone that I will more likely than not have higher than the consensus.
I'll throw another name in there because I do want to talk about an uncommitted prospect that Penn State absolutely needs real quick. Blake Betton, who is in the class of 2027 for Penn State. It's because he's playing a hybrid position. He's not a true linebacker. He's not a true safety. So the scouts don't really, they have an objective grading system, right? And it is difficult to grade Blake Betton as a linebacker because he's not exactly playing that, but again, watch the film, and he is undersized at this point in time, around 200 pounds. He's a multi-sport athlete. Blake Betton can be a 3-down linebacker and could be a captain of the defense, again, at his peak. So that's another prospect. Carter Blattner, Blake Betton, and Jamir Dean, they stay in this Penn State recruiting class. These are guys that are extremely underrated at this point in time. And I expect all of them to move up in the rankings and get the right evaluation. Okay. So we bring this full circle, Pat. Will Wood committing to Penn State, talking about NIL and budgeting and being strategic and having archetype caliber prospects. Abraham Sesay there is no archetype. He's just a really good football player. He's a really good athlete. He's a really good football player. He's in the state of Pennsylvania. This is the commitment that if Penn State can somehow get this, pull it off, I see some recruiting buzz that Penn State's still chipping away. They're trying to get that official visit. Other people that are closer to Notre Dame says, nope, this one's all good, taken care of. If Penn State and Matt Campbell could pull off Abraham Sesay committing to the Nittany Lions over the likes of Notre Dame, and I know he's got Duke, Manny Diaz and Duke are very much in this recruitment as well. Pennsylvania guy. I think that's you want to plant the flag in Matt Campbell's first year at Penn State. That's the recruitment that you need to win. I'd be disappointed if they don't land. It's not the end of the world, but I'm saying, hey, if you really want to take a massive step forward, Abraham Sesay is the prospect to land, especially when you need defensive ends. They don't really have a true pass rusher at this moment.
Yeah, premium position too, right? Like, obviously quarterback gets all the headlines, but I do think, like, if you had to tell me, hey, you can only have one 5-star kid in this class at a specific position, what would it be? I think it'd be defensive end. And to have Abraham Sesay, I don't know where he's at with, I think Rivals has him as a 5-star. I'm not sure where 24/7 has him at, but clearly like a 5-star talented kid. And just seems like the type of guy, and this is where, I know NIL can get a little hairy with, like, should we pay, someone who hasn't, has only played high school football like this much money or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think if someone, checks all the boxes that you're looking for as far as personality and academics and how they're going to fit with the team and athleticism and football acumen, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. If you check every box of that, and the only thing that you don't check is, well, he wants a little bit more money, I don't know. I feel like sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and you just have to, suck it up and do it. Kind of not dissimilar to what Penn State did with Andrew Olesh a couple of years ago, where it was like Michigan, and then Penn State finally came over the top and I think relented. And now, granted, it didn't quite work. Maybe tight end wasn't the spot that you're going to pay a 5-star kid, knowing that he's going to have to redshirt anyway.
I would have rather had because Brandon Fitty came at that cost.
Yeah.
I'm glad a 4th-string tight end got all that NIL money, but a 5th-string tight end that we never saw really play it down for Penn State. But Brandon Fitty, who could have come in and been a co-starter, 2-deep kind of guy, ends up again winning the game against Penn State, and ends up being part of James Franklin's downfall. There, he was that kind of contributor for Oregon. Yeah. Interesting.
I still like Andrew Olesh, for the record. I think he's going to do quite well at Oregon,
and now he's in Oregon too. So, oh my goodness.
But anyway, to get back to Sesay though, right? That is the type of guy, and specifically where defensive end is at, where, I mean, we'll see what happens this year, because there's certainly some young guys that can come up and all of a sudden, like, defensive end is kind of looked at as a weakness. And then, just like that, it's like, oh, it's a strength. Kind of think about like Penn State in 2022 and going into 2023 then. But Sesay feels like a guy that, I don't know if he's enrolling early or not. I can't think of if his high school allows that or not. But he feels like a guy that, kind of what I said to begin the episode of, like, quarterback, yeah, either you're the starter or you're probably not really involved in the game itself, other than if you're like a dual threat type guy, have a Bo Prabula package. Sesay can get on the field, though. A defensive end in particular can get on the field, even as a rotation guy. So I don't know. Again, it's easy for me to say, hey, spend the money. It's not my money. Like, listen, I'm not putting up the $1 million, a couple $1 million it's going to take to get them. But I think that's one of the spots where you kind of look at the budget and you're like, this might be worth it. So we'll see. It'd certainly be nice. And yeah, certainly would be nice to get him. Would also be nice for Notre Dame not to get him, because
I like that too. I like that part of it too.
Marcus
It felt
Freeman.
really good to have Cooper Terwilliger end up at Penn State, and the Notre Dame cope was, well, we didn't really want him. Yeah, you did. You flew a private helicopter into South Dakota to extend an offer to him personally. Notre Dame absolutely wanted him. So at least Penn State wins a recruiting battle, just one against Notre Dame. It seemed like it was 0 for a dozen the past couple of years.
That's just how it's always been. Like I've said that started following recruiting like 2010. I still remember Ishaq Williams in the 2011 class, breaking my heart going to Notre Dame. So, by the way, Zach, Notre Dame fans saying that Terwilliger, he wasn't a take at Notre Dame. That's just how it goes. Peter Bourque, sorry, wasn't a take at Penn State. I hate to break it to you. Abraham Sesay, if he goes to Notre Dame, sorry, Penn State, we actually ran out of room. That's just how recruiting goes.
No spot. They didn't have a spot for him.
Bourque got shut out.
Hey, that's where we're going to wrap things up. Hopefully that's not the case. Penn State's got a spot for him and he takes the spot. That is where we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. My name is Zach Sako. He is Pat Kerbler. Thanks so much for being here again. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Links to Pat's work will be down in the description. I highly encourage you to go check them out. Pat, it's always great to chat with you. Seriously, I enjoy every single one of these conversations we have. Can't wait to do it again in the not too distant future.
Greatly appreciate it as always, Zach. Until next time.